This arrow is expressed as a vector shape. So notice over here inside my vector set, inside the layers palette, I'm going to twirl it open so we can see what's inside. This layer is the text layer that says learn about my shoes, learn about PD's shoes, which are fascinating shoes it turns out. Then we have below that this fairly involved shape layer. It has the color of the arrow, which is yellow. It has the arrow mask itself. That's what this final vector mask thumbnail item is the arrow itself. And then we have a gradient layer mask that allows the arrow to fade in on the page. So notice if I shift click on that layer mask to turn it off, what it does. So this is without the layer mask. We have a hard edged arrow like so. This is with the layer mask. The arrow fades in. So this is an old trick that worked inside Photoshop 6. You could mix the vector-based shape masks with pixel-based layer masks as well, and that's what I have going on. And then this shape underneath is a shape from a different portion of the image. For now, I just want to focus on this arrow. Now, Photoshop 6 and ImageReady 7's precursor, which happened to be ImageReady 3, both supported vector-based shapes. But where web graphics were concerned, there wasn't really all that much you could do with them. Now inside Photoshop 7 and ImageReady 7, you can use shape outlines to control the optimization process. So how does that work? Let me show you. I'm going to go get the slice tool, and I'm going to draw a slice around this arrow, like so. I could have also converted the layer to a slice if I had wanted to, but in this case I want to have a little more control over what I'm doing. So I'm going to set this to a slice that is now known as slice 9. And if I press Control-Shift-Alt-S or Command-Shift-Option-S on the Mac, I'll go back inside the Save for Web dialog box. Now let's focus on this slice right here. Here's slice 9 around the arrow. Now again, Photoshop has selected the GIF format, which is fine by me for this graphic. And I'm going to lower the number of colors here to 32 because I don't need this many colors to represent this graphic, and it's going to make the file smaller on disk. And notice Photoshop is previewing the size of this finished slice as being 3.092K. But using new vector-based options inside Photoshop 7, I can get this file size to half that and actually make the image look better. So keep an eye on this value. Right now it says 3.092K. I'm going to select from the Transparency Dither pop-up menu, Diffusion Transparency Dither. And that's going to knock the size of the graphic down to 2.53K. So I've already reduced the size of the image just using this transparency dither, which makes my image blend in with other background elements better anyway. So this is perfect. I do have a problem, however, with the legibility of the text here. And I would rather that I didn't have a ton of dithering going on inside my arrow. It's okay to have dithering going on outside the arrow, but I'd like to limit it inside the arrow. And to do that, I'm going to go over to the dither option. Notice it's currently set to 100%, which means Photoshop can dither the pixels or mix the colors around as much as it wants to. However, if I click on this little channel option to the right of the dither value, I'll bring up this dialog box that now, in addition to the old channel option that we've had in the past, we also have a couple of checkboxes that allow us to associate dithering either with the outlines of the characters inside of a text layer or with the outline of a shape inside of a vector shape layer, like this one here. So when I turn this on, Photoshop is going to then use my arrow outline as a mask. Notice this little preview of the arrow mask on the right-hand side of the dialog box. And this is now saying that outside the arrow in the white area, Photoshop will be permitted a dither value of 100%, which is maximum dither. But inside the arrow, which is the black area here, we'll go to the minimum dither value, which is 0%, or the absolute minimum. Now, I could adjust these values if I want to. I could permit more dithering inside the arrow and less dithering outside the arrow if I like. And we'll be able to preview the effects like so inside the Save for Web dialog box here. But in my case, I'm just going to leave them set to their ultimate maximum and minimum values like so. So I'm permitting a wide range of dithering to occur. And notice that I can preview my file size as well. It is now dropped from 2.53K down to 2.099K. So I'm dropping yet more file size here as I'm working. And my text is more legible. So it's a win-win situation. And I'm going to click OK. So I can use that vector outline to ensure sharp, accurate, small files for the web. Also, I could add in a little lossy compression to the file. Now, normally I don't apply lossy compression to my GIF images, but now that I can apply the lossy compression strictly outside the vector, it becomes more useful. So what I'm going to do is click on this little mask icon to the right of the lossy option. Brings up a very similar dialog box to what we saw before. I'm going to turn on all vector shape layers, and notice this time we get an opposite sort of mask. We see a white arrow against a black background. So inside the arrow, we have the minimum amount of lossy compression, which is 0, none whatsoever. And outside the arrow, we have maximum lossy compression, and it really doesn't change the appearance of the dither much at all. It doesn't look any different to me. There certainly is a little bit of difference, but it doesn't change my visual perception of this arrow. And yet, notice the file size dropped 200 bytes or so, from 2.099K down to now 1.865K. So it compressed that file size even more. Love it. Gonna click OK. This works perfectly for me. If I'm ready to save this file for the web, I would click on the Save button. In my case, I'm going to click Cancel though, so we can switch back to ImageReady for a moment. So I can show you the final enhancement for web designers, which is available inside ImageReady only. And that's this new Rollovers palette.